If the problems in Los Angeles taught us anything, it's that the racial divide in this country is perhaps deeper than it's ever been. Where have we gone wrong, and what can we do to bring the races closer together? Or have we reached a point of no return, one which will lead to a major racial clash throughout America? And what about Minnesota? Is this state truly as tolerant as many people believe? We've gathered 27 people here today who represent different racial and social backgrounds. And although a few of them have written for local papers or served on community organizations, none of them are full-time social activists. They're ordinary people, like most of you viewing this program. Hosting with me today is Jan Smeby, the host of Almanac.
Thank you, Robert. I wonder at times these days whether many people don't think that the racial tension and problems in our country have not gotten worse of late. How many of you feel that it has gotten worse of late? How many of you? Raise your hands. Whoa. Vuzi, why? Why do you think it has gotten worse?
Part of the reason why I think that it has gotten worse is because of the fact the way in which people have responded in the past. Many of us have become somewhat invisible. There are all of these overt acts of racism which are being covered up. Folks say, I don't see color, which is saying I don't see you who are of color. People don't tend to care very much about those who are not quite like them. There's a denial of our existence. It's one of the primary reasons why I think that things have gotten worse. On the other hand, within my community, the opportunities and things which one might be able to achieve have been minimized. And the fastest growing institution in the country is the prison, which is where I work.
How about you, Steve Prescott? How do you feel about what he just said?
I think the problems have gotten worse because we've been trying too hard to get along. There's been a sort of a movement to engineer people, and I think people don't like to be engineered.
When you say engineered, what do you mean?
Social engineering. I would prefer to be able to be friends with other people of other colors or genders or sexual orientations without being told whether or not it's correct.
Jason, you're nodding.
Well, really, I feel that the situation in my neighborhood or my society, it definitely has gotten worse. And it's gonna get worse as time goes on. For one, that young people are being miseducated every day. In schools, they're being miseducated as far as an authorized figure teaching them something. For instance, in the United States of America, in schools today, we are taught how to be Americans. We are taught the American system, the American way. But not once in the 12 years of our education, our public education, are we taught humanity. Now, when you are looking at being an American so much, you become to be an American, but you forget about being human. You forget about people's feelings. You forget about the priority of life. Like my man said, just forget about your existence. That's why it's getting worse. But as far as it's getting worse, that's good. Because, I mean, brothers already been broken down to the last decimal. So it ain't nothing we can't overcome. We already been in bondage. You know what I'm saying? We've been beat. It's tactical genocide on us every day. I even watched my brother die. So I feel that ain't nothing in this world I can't overcome. So getting worse, that's good. Because sooner or later, ain't gonna be no hump we can't get over.
I think what we have now is backlash against the progress that's been made. My little granddaughter in Durham, North Carolina, goes to school with a lot of people of different races and different classes. I never had that opportunity when I was a grade school child in North Carolina. There has been a night and day kind of difference made in many parts of the country for many people, but there is a backlash against it. And I think that that backlash will produce progress, not because of the backlash itself, but because of the kind of incentive that it gives people to work harder and to do the kind of thing that we're doing tonight, talk to each other and listen to each other.
In your everyday life, though, do you think people are working harder among the people that you've experienced, especially after this Los Angeles incident? Do you think people are working harder?
Some of the things that I'm hearing are things that say that there's a great deal of responsibility in terms of the folks teaching others. Our sitting here today, whether your initial question was, do you believe that folks are working harder? If by that you are talking about in a progressive way, or are they working harder to become more human? I think not. I think that there are more persons looking for some other savior, some other way of getting away, some other way of trying to remove themselves from what's actually happening. And indeed, I just left North Carolina. It was multicultural then. There just wasn't any credit given to one of those cultures, and in fact, several of those cultures. Native Americans weren't given any credit, they were there. Black folks weren't given any credit, we were there. See, just saying that I know something about those folks, in the same way in which you say you know something about the values, many people believe they already know now. They've already done their job. They're not working any harder to do any more. They're saying, I've done it. Why can't the rest of you folks be all right? Or they conversely will ask certain individuals, certainly not me, they may ask some of the others of you, why can't all of those folks be like you? By God, you're a good one.
What he's bringing up is that in this country, different ethnicities experience racism differently. I mean, and I'm surprised that we haven't really, or you haven't stopped to really try to ask what does racism mean? Exactly. Because different people experience racism differently, and a lot of times it's linked to ethnicity. That what some people think is racism is cross-burning and lynching, and that's it. But coming up against a glass ceiling in a company, that's not racism. Or being the butt of a racial joke, that's not racism. Or not being allowed to join a club, well, that's just people wanting to have people that they like in the club. So I think one of the things that we need to understand is, how do people experience racism? And depending on your ethnicity, you may experience racism a lot differently, or may not even experience it at all, which gets to the point, which is how people get to the place where they can say, oh, there's no such thing as racism anymore.
How many of you have experienced racism?
There are a couple of examples that come to mind. One more recent example would be the weekend following the Rodney King incident in LA. We bought a home a year ago in Shoreview in a white neighborhood. We have 2 picture windows. One was shot out. It was the sheriff who came to the house, the policeman who came to the house and said, it's unfortunate that we even need to think that this is because of what happened in LA. I think that was racism. Our home is back in the cul-de-sac. You really have to make a concerted effort to aim at one of those windows and get our home. The second thing that happened was, I was in Kmart on a Sunday afternoon with my granddaughter, and I had gotten some cleaning items, and it was not a very busy time in the store, and the cashier motioned to me to come into her lane because she was just standing there. It was a lane, the express lane, and I had more than the 6 or whatever number of items they said you can put on the counter. As I got there, a gentleman, a white, and I'm calling him a gentleman because we're on TV, he said to me, you can't go there, you have more than whatever the number was. That's what's wrong with you people. You can't count, you can't read, and you stink. In Kmart. And immediately, I kind of lost it. A security guard came over and saved him. That's racism to me. Being told in corporate America that you can't fit into a culture because of the color of your skin, that's blatant racism. Now let's go back to your other question. Why do we feel it's getting worse? Some of it is driven by economics and resentment, and I think it's all relative. We're all from various backgrounds here, and we all experience it differently, as the gentleman stated here.